Finance committee.
Budget committee.
Right.
Yes, you can be, I think so.
I think there's only
Oh, yeah,
two.
you are on here as a member.
Oh, you're a member. The first agenda item would be adopt the 2019-2020 proposed preliminary budget. I'm gonna pass that over to Leanne, because I don't have anything on that.
It's just gotten finalized, and this is just the preliminary budget, so we have months to go yet with changes. We'll have another budget workshop or two. So lots of, adds in, takes out, different versions to go from here. This is just our very first general budget that we're submitting to the state to let them know that, yes, we are working on it. So this is called the PDE 2028. This is what is submitted to the state. And this is available online. If you go under Northern London to the business office page, it's under budget, it's preliminary. So there's a PDF of this there. I just brought paper copies with, just 3 copies in case anyone wanted to browse through it.
Nice.
But this will be what is on the agenda for next Tuesday, voted on, and then it'll be signed and submitted with this top copy, this top paper, to the state.
That is on the website now?
Yep, it's on the website.
Under the business office.
Yes, and there's like a section called,
Business
like,
office
it
section.
comes up on the left-hand side and says budget, and click there, and then it's on there. There's a link for it.
Do you want a copy? You can take one of these.
Yeah,
That's
Sure.
why we
these are
did
for
them.
anyone to
So
take home.
you don't have to go on and print it off, and it's already there.
Those are available.
Highlight, move forward, you keep it. Any? Pass it off. Consensus then?
It's getting. So this is with no exception?
Right, no exceptions, and we aren't approving last month we didn't apply for exceptions, so.
We can't after we
Right,
don't apply.
and the
so-
amount that we qualified for would have been only an additional 40,000.
Okay.
So there wasn't very much exceptions
to
provision
accept.
given to
Is
us.
the revenue larger than last year's?
I'm sorry, what?
Is the revenues larger than this year's?
Yes, the revenues, in the preliminary budget, typically what we've always done in the past, what most other districts do, is you do the tax raise at your index, which ours is the 2.9, 2.8, I'm sorry, so that's why you see the 2.799% on the tax page so the revenue does include a tax increase at that level, the index level.
So this budget includes adding more taxes.
Correct.
But that can change. It starts out one way, and then typically it'll be presented and discussed at different options. Raising it to this, raising it to that, raising it.
Yeah, I think they've already asked me to do 3 different tax increase scenarios for the next budget workshop.
If there was no increase in the taxes, what is the difference that the revenue would be?
We usually include that, just to give a comparison.
A 0%,
We
yes.
usually have a 0% in that, so you'll be able to see a 0%. I think we said 2 point.
5, and then in the index of
The
2.8.
index of 2.8.
So there'll be like
So
a
you'll
4.
you'll see each of those to like what we would do to our general fund if it didn't, what it would do to the deficit, those kind of things like that. This is just very much step 1.
So actually, if you're saying tax-wise, this is worst-case scenario, because we can't go above that.
Right.
So, okay. Let's give them as our preliminary, just this is the worst it can get, and then see
Go
what we
back
can
down
do
from
to.
that.
back
What
down.
you want to cut, what you don't want to cut, if you want to make changes, how we do it, that's the. We're hoping that this year is a lot smoother, as kind of said to her, since we have an idea, because I think last year what had happened was miscommunication of how to have it presented. So I think that each time, and then if we just as a board can kind of cut some of those out faster, I think would help you, because you were having to compare all of that for each one of those. So I think if we give ourselves kind of a date, or like by this meeting, we should have
So we're not
eliminated.
gonna do the, I'm sorry, we're not gonna do the green and the blue and the A and the B and,
Well, we might still do that, but we're gonna try
Oh.
not to have as many versions.
Yeah.
And, the
Eliminate
list, well, first of all, the list of things that are coming as additional expenses, I don't think is gonna be near as large this year, because we've really sent out the message of, there's no increase in spending, so.
Right.
We're freezing everything except for salary benefits and the things that we have to increase.
Sure.
So that is out there, so there's not gonna be as large of a list of things to add into the budget. So we're hoping that we can narrow that down much quicker of what we're including and what we're not, and then focus on areas to cut and what we would like to see as a tax increase.
Gotcha.
Am I reading this properly? As page 3 has the total estimated revenue and page 10 has the total estimated expenditures?
And then page 3, you're correct. I'm getting to page 10.
So that would be the total estimated expenditures? Is that what he's?
The 40,380,000,
Give me 1 second.
or is it a different page that I should be looking at for the
Nope.
total estimated?
You're correct.
Okay, so, and the estimated revenues, it should be the 38,400, or should it be the 41,500 on page 3? Because I'm thinking that was including your, what you have in the bank already, your current fund.
The ending fund balance is the 3 million there, what you see.
So the 38,400 is what you're bringing in, and the 40.3 is what you're estimating spending. And your goal in the budget workshop was to have a budget neutral budget right now,
A balanced budget, yes.
balanced budget, which
Well, this is a
obviously
preliminary
there's-
budget.
Start, so that's what we're trying to get to, that's what each of the,
Yep, I'm just verifying you guys are looking that you now notice that you have to trim.
yeah. That's, and what we have to pay and what we, then we get like the list of what's contracted, what's,
Right.
what we can get away with, what's IEP, what's special ed, what if we get rid of this, puts us in liability of being in non-compliance, there's just different, lots of that, and this is step 1 in that very long, and each one of these meetings going forward will have and show, like, this is what, we've tried to cut, this is, so that'll,
And in those expenses, is included for $290,000 to write off some of the negative food service balance that we are trying to address. That was our goal, to write that down in 3 years. So $290,000 of those expenses are transferred to the food service fund.
Has anyone ever figured out where that money went?
Sorry.
You're transferring funds in because you're saying that's basically meaning the funds were
it
missing?
didn't get paid, right?
No funds were missing. Nothing was not paid. It was, the food service was operating at a loss each year, and it accumulated to that amount.
Okay.
That's why we went from self-service to contracted
That was
service, where it's
One of the
neutral. Now
factors.
we get it, like
And we just
$6,000
didn't
a month
pay
or
it
something
until,
for their food.
we just didn't start touching it to pay it, is that the part
It
that I
just
think is
sat there.
correct? Like, it sat there as a debt that we still had to pay, and this is just starting to pay it, they just,
So is there if
There's not a
this
debt,
is all
so.
paid and there's no debt, why do we have to pay into it?
We're not paying into it, it's a transfer, it's an accounting internal transfer from one fund to the other.
So then I'm only confused as a layman trying to understand if everything was paid for and so there's no debt on it. Do we have to spend that money, the 290,000 is what you said? Do we have to spend that much, or can we save that instead?
Well, we could certainly not spend it this year, but we're not really spending it, we're transferring it internally from fund to fund. There's really no checks being written out, no money being expensed from like our account being sent to an outside source, but it's just correcting the ending fund balances.
so is it kind
Is
of
it
like
something
if
that
you
you
take
could
it to
just-
pay something, like if you take out of your savings account to pay off a bill,
Mm-hmm.
but that savings account, you have a set amount you have to keep in there each month. So in order to get that savings account back up, and you can change me, I'm trying to think as like a housewife kind of thing, like you're cutting down from one thing to make up.
Or is
where you
it something
paid
that
from.
you could just write off and say, okay, that doesn't have to come back?
Well, we don't have
I-
to do it this year, we can prolong it, it had been prolonged in the past, and last year, we took a stance that we wanted to address this and correct it, so that's why we had done the transfer The first one is happening this year, and we had a 3-year plan, so that's why the second one is happening in the year 1920. And
Is it done at the end of the school year so that if you're running out of money, you can put a pause on it?
we can, I mean, it's done at the end of the year. I do it right before the auditors come because, again, it's not actual money being sent. It's an accounting transfer. So there's really no way to put it in unless you're running a full accounting system on your being at home finances to do a comparison that way. I don't know how to put it into.
I was trying
that
to
fact. I'm
break
sorry.
it down, because we're not,
So-
because you're not spending anything, you're just moving it around, but it's
Right,
a
and I'm just
cost.
trying to
Like,
see,
I'm not
is
sending
it,
a check to
is
anybody.
is it something that has to be done? Is that
it's
fund
better.
have to go back, or can you just say, we had a loss, write it off, that's done, we're going forward? Or does that fund, like she said, do you have to put it back to a certain number?
It's just not a proper financial and accounting to leave that fund be negative. It would continue to be negative. So what we're trying to do is,
Auditing wise, is that an issue? Like if we get audited?
right, like our
they come in,
auditors
they
are the
see-
ones who are, they would
Suggesting.
like us to fix
So if you
this.
put it back in the cafeteria fund, is that what's gonna be used to pay cafeteria stuff? Or contracts for the cafeteria stuff? Is it the cafeteria money?
It's basically
It's
Right.
not actual money.
Right, but is it?
It's not gonna be
credit?
used to pay anything.
It's
So-
basically
But
they're
is it going
taking three.
into that?
Yeah, it's
I
going
guess.
into the food service fund,
Right,
which is
food
what we
service,
pay the
okay.
cafeteria out of.
Will that food service money or, okay.
So it-
Play money be used, what will that be used for then? I'm trying to understand
It's-
it too.
To get to
The
zero
money's-
balance.
The money's
get to
already
zero.
been spent. It's kind of like,
Oh, it's,
You're
We
getting rid of the
already lost the
negative.
money
You're
years
putting
ago.
it in a zero.
Now, and we took that money that we were losing years ago from what fund?
the general
From the
fund.
general fund, years ago. And now we're taking it back from the general fund. Because so let's say for 10 years we had employees in the cafeteria and they were selling food. The employees cost us $100, but we were only selling $50 of food.
Right.
And this happened year after year. So before you know it,
right.
but we know that. We have our general fund that we put money into this fund. So
Yeah,
So
that's what I
now-
was trying to say. I was trying to do it.
it's time
Like,
to
that's the way my
Right.
husband's
move the money
very,
back and
like,
forth and
he-
get
But
it.
we're not
So
gonna
is
use that
this
money once it's
is
moved.
this
government
movie
shutdown risk on a regular
money
basis,
coming
so
from
we try
the
to
cafeteria fund
always-
into the general, or the
No, it's
general
coming
into
from
the
the
cafeteria?
general into the cafeteria.
Into the
But you're
cafeteria.
saying
Because
we're
for
not gonna
years,
use,
we were
Yes.
taking care of the cafeteria fund shortage and our
Yes,
inefficiencies
that's
in
what we do.
operations
That
from the
is
general fund.
Okay, so that's,
And now
so
it's
what's the
time to
benefit
get
of
it
having to
right.
put it back?
Because it's just accounting rules. Everybody, corporations, government entities, we all have accounting rules that we have to abide by.
So
And it's
eventually,
not our
if we
money.
build that back up,
yeah,
that it's
it'll stay
in
zero.
a cafeteria, it'll always stay zero.
It
In other
will.
words, we're
We'll
not
put it
trying to
back
build
where
it up and build it
negative.
up so that we eventually
No.
we can have our own cafeterias, people back and
No.
not subcontract
I think if
out.
that became a cost effective, we had to look at that, that would be a completely different. What I was
So
trying
this
to,
is this is a
like,
problem
you're just
from
trying to
years ago
balance it.
that now we're trying to correct, and it's
Yeah.
painful, and that's why
It sucks.
It does. It does suck because we
sucks.
could spend that $200,000 on other things, but instead we have to make the accounting right.
In whose eyes? And I'm just,
State.
okay, that's what I was
Our
wondering.
auditing,
That's what I,
state
okay,
auditing,
that's what I was
the way
wondering.
it,
Who
like,
came in and said,
goes,
okay, now
the
you really need
auditors.
to step up
Our
and put
auditors
this
tell us
in.
over year, like
Yeah.
the last
Okay.
2 years I've been on.
They've
the board.
been saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, and we've like, okay, we've
Right.
dragged her, because now, mind you, as a board, if something happens and we're looking at having to cut significant programs, can we look at this as, okay, do we just put a little less in next year, what do we do? We can do that, but if we can get out of the negative, that's just where you wanna be, just like, I don't think anybody likes to have a negative anywhere in their budget, so that's.
And I think for too long, they were telling us to make it right, and we were like, we just kicked the can. We just kept kicking the can, and so now
Okay.
it's like, we're gonna do this in 3 years, have it done, and then it's no longer passed on to the next board. So, yeah, it is painful, but I'd rather take care of it and have it done, and rather
Well, I
than
think we
kick the
started
can.
and we committed last year during the budgeting process, so that was the other,
And to be fair, this went back to a prior administration that kept it from the board.
True.
So, I mean, this was something we did not realize till
The
it was
debt
brought
was
to our,
accruing, so
that
that's-
it was brought to our attention.
so.
So hopefully that helps answer.
Yes,
Site
did
plan.
me.
Thanks, Dave.
Do you do accounting?
I took a couple classes in college. It's
Good job.
very general.
I just have a very anal husband. The next agenda, I'm gonna put that as a consensus
You can have
unless
this
anyone
one.
else disagrees. Anybody that need to discuss?
You're talking about
To discuss
number
what,
two?
I'm sorry.
The board members, just, we have to decide if this is a consensus item or a discussion for the board meeting, if we want
I think it can be consent.
consent. That we agree to send it off, so that's. The second agenda item is to approve a letter of agreement with PA Counseling Services. This is a regulation of the PA Department of Health and PA Department of Human Services. Agreement is for 2 years or until terminated by either agency. This is not cost effective, correct? Isn't that?
There's no cost.
There's
but
no
I-
cost.
if
Yeah,
I
like
recall
there's
correctly.
no cost. Basic.
Is there a cost if we use the services or just,
No, it's just an agreement we go into that they're allowed to provide services to our students, I believe.
Through insurance process, isn't that not the access or access insurance, so that's just the. That way you don't have like parents going out and handpicking their own counseling services to bring in 15 of them. Consensus, is that?
Consensus.
Third item, approve a contract for special education, supervisory, and support services with the IU13 for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year, ending on June 14th, 2019, at a cost of $490 a day for a maximum of 65 days. This will be paid through access funds, which is special education designated, so that is not coming out of the general fund in any way. That's kind of,
That's incorrect.
is that incorrect?
Access
Is it?
funds are put into the general fund, so
Fund.
this will
So
be
this
paid out
will-
of the general fund. But access funds are funds that come in and we have to use
You
them
have to use them for special ed. That's what I was
for
trying to
new
like.
special education
Yeah.
initiatives.
That's kind of like that a little bit, so it's, we have to use it for special ed, so that's where the,
So we get access funds every year?
We do.
Same amount?
No, it varies,
Is that what goes child count? Is that what that's for?
which one?
Does child count come into play with that access fund?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not sure what child, I'm not sure.
That's something Faith does with the keeping tabs of stuff.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure what goes all into applying for
would
the
that be
access
listed
funds.
under the breakdown of where the access funds are?
I don't have that in front of me. There's a specific count code, I don't believe it goes down to that level in detail.
Okay.
but if anybody has any questions on this, I would recommend speaking with Mr. Skojan, as this is his recommendation. And I will, I mean, although I think it's consensus for everybody that agrees with it, I think I'm just gonna put it on discussion so that he can kind of explain what that role will be in the district and who's kind of the go-to for that, so.
Is Ed going to speak to whether this is this is a end of school year, so this is just carrying us through to that, and there would be a plan beyond that?
I believe so, if I remember correctly, it was kind of discussed as, because he's taken on more of the assistant superintendent roles, like we want to make sure that special education is still a very key focus, and who we had kind of hired was Chad, and then after Kinsey, that position was changing and that teacher had left, and so then
This is not fair.
the person that stepped in for that, they'll kind of be working in with them to kind of help guide and hopefully bring them up to the level that they need to be. So for next year, they understand all of those, just getting our IEPs, where they need to be 504, like everything.
So
is
is this
this-
just for the end of this year and not renewed next year?
No, it should not be. But again, I don't want to say renewed or not. I think it's dependent upon
What our needs are.
what our needs are, but that's while he'll discuss, there'll be more information available about that position through Mr. Skozen.
Dr. McInerney, does that make, because you're
I
looking, I'm
just-
thinking, is there
I just-
something else?
I mean, Jenny Upton's not going to be, are you talking about Jenny Upton, working with Jenny Upton? She
I
took
think, would it
Amanda's
be
position.
above, I think this
Well, I know-
person would come in as kind of a consulting.
And so you're saying they're consulting with Jenny so that Jenny can be up to speed next year? Is that what you're saying?
I don't wanna say a name. I don't have any idea.
Well,
Jenny's
Jenny's the one who took over for Amanda.
Yes, but we didn't actually hire Amanda in the like Chad's position changed.
Right.
When he left, that position itself changed. And that's what I think that Ed was kind of doing more of that of a role, but now that he's left, we need someone to fill in what Ed was doing, which was a lot.
I would only just say that Jenny isn't going to, doesn't have the certifications. Like I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
if you
it
were
might
saying
not be,
she
that's what
will.
I'm saying. I think I meant like the position itself of what Chad was, that Ed was filling. And then Amanda Mulfair had been considered,
Right.
she had left. So
Right.
then we have
Jenny
people
came in.
covering things, but we don't have anybody in that specific role that
So
Chad or
Jenny's
Ed
still
did.
doing what she's doing.
Yes.
Jenny's
And-
the
Yes, so this
consulting.
is more of an
But
Ed.
this is, that's what I was gonna
Right.
say,
This
this
is
is kind
more
of an
Ed.
Ed replacement,
Yes,
right?
until
Okay.
we decide or can figure out what that position actually entails. Is that
Gotcha.
someone that's just special ed? Is that someone that's pupil service to special ed?
Gotcha.
Curriculum special ed, or however that is.
So this is
it
to
gets us
figure
it.
out what our needs really are.
Yes,
Gotcha.
and this
Okay.
person will also be able to kind of come in and really tell us like where our strengths and our weaknesses are in special education and where to focus for next year, which I think will be kind of nice to
Okay,
get some info.
thank you.
That'll be discussion. Are there any questions for,
With the public comment thing?
yeah, with the public comment, is there?
Well, I want to make it just a clarification.
As a board member or a public?
As a board member, I made a statement. It was my understanding that was, that whole thing that we were discussing earlier, but with the cafeteria fund, that account was not visible that much to the board. Like, we were not really aware of what was going on for many years, and then all of a sudden it popped, because we had these big ending fund balances, and then all of a sudden we found out that, would you agree with that, or my understanding of that?
I'm not sure how it was presented,
It
from
was just
past
a
administrators.
way.
I mean, I've sat through the auditor presentation since I've been here, but I've only started after the auditor's presentation in March 2015, so, I could see it on there, but I would say that I'm probably a little more well-versed in financial
Yeah, I think,
statements and
yeah,
picking those
probably.
things up.
Well, I think even if you saw it, you wouldn't have
any.
any idea, because it just wouldn't be, you wouldn't assume it's.
Yeah.
I just looked at it, like, when I was trying to do that comparison, like, if you take, I just have a very strict husband, so if we take money from anywhere to pay something else that we didn't expect to have to pay, we have to make it up, whether it's by little from other budgetary areas in the house, or however it is, even though the money's already spent, and we could continue to keep it that way, we don't, we still take it out and we move it into different accounts, just to make sure everything is, so that we don't see a negative. That's just, I mean, I think it makes your job easier. I think it makes auditors coming in looking like, why do you have a negative account? What the heck?
It's cleaner and it's more correct.
Yeah. And I think moving forward, that's something that we can't like guarantee, but I believe it's something we won't see happen again, like hidden
The
negatives,
cafeteria is
like-
running.
Well, any type of a negative that just keeps occurring and you're like, I just don't need to tell the board about this until it's, you know, this high. I think we're pretty up to
I think
date.
we knew that. I think we knew that the board, the cafeteria, but I think this account transfer thing is what we
Right.
didn't, was what I'm saying.
Right.
That we were not aware that this thing was out there and had to be dealt with.
Right, no, I know it
And
wasn't
so-
presented to you.
And so that's what
Yes.
I'm saying. I'm not saying that it was, you know, but that we did not know that this other transfer thing had to take place and would affect the ending fund balance.
So if there's no public comment about budgetary or anything else, then do you have any?
Any questions?
Not at this time.
And we did ask, like this was presented, like every one of these committees, like any of the changes and everything, that like we would see the, I don't know if you've seen them in the past where we show the different brackets for, were you here for the budget last
I was here
year?
for the budget this last year.
So you saw like when we had it at a 2.5, a 2.0 and everything like that, that's put on the website as well, by correct, once you start.
Once I start, yeah, I always put the budget I will put the budget PowerPoints on the website.
So you should be able
so
to
that
like,
data will be
have
there.
that before you come in here, so that way you're not like just looking at it for the first time and then trying to make up questions as you go. It should give you a chance to look at it, come in, and then sit down, so that's,
So must it be passed and approved and passed next week?
no.
May,
This is just
in May.
the
This is
prelim, by
in
May.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the preliminary. So the preliminary will get voted on and will be passed next week. And then we work on it, and then in May we do,
The final tweaks.
well, in May we do our proposed final budget, and we vote on that. Well, the board votes on that. So the board votes and approves a proposed final budget. And then in June, they go and they vote on the final budget. They approve the final budget. So there can be changes made if needed all the way up to June.
But you said this is like the
Worst
highest
case.
tax.
Worst case, yeah,
Worst
so
case
like
scenario.
next month, I'm gonna assume, and I don't wanna say you're gonna have this and it's not here, but next month we'll probably see the different options as a 2 point. So next month, we'll look at this is what was submitted, and you'll have that one as like the last row, and then it'll show, like, if we do no tax increase, this is where we're at, and then a 2.5, and it just kinda shows it that way, so that'll be, and then hopefully we eliminate faster than we did last year. I think she had to permitted, I think you had to do a lot of those, so. But, that's it.
I'm not sure if I want to join or not.
Taking my board hat off now. Thing, that's adjourned, meeting is